Take 19. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Jasmine Thomas. And welcome to another take of One Take, the podcast. I am your host, Jasmine Thomas, and as usual, I really appreciate you guys joining me for another episode. This episode builds on Take 18. So, in Take 18, we started talking about money, how to become financially fit, how to turn your life around, how to finally start thinking about finding freedom by having money and not drowning in debt. That episode, I titled it, Are You Ready to Get Your Money Life Together? So if you haven't listened to Take 18, I highly recommend that you start there, as we're going to be building on for the next couple of weeks on our money talks. And there I told you how I learned the hard lessons about managing my money when my husband lost his job and we suddenly had to go from living with 2 paychecks to living on 1 income. And that was really hard and that was very stressful. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of shame. There was a lot of stress and depression. And I'm sharing that with you guys because I don't want you to go through it. And it was all because we didn't know how to best manage our finances. And that's something that you don't really learn about in school, but you learn in life. And if you haven't gone through financial troubles, I don't want you to go through. So I rather tell you my story and share what we learned so that you can avoid getting there. And if you are in financial troubles, you have to know that the struggle is temporary and there are ways for you to change the course of your life. Our life was flipped upside down with the loss of a job and the loss of an income. And we learned our lessons and we decided that that was never going to happen again. That was never going to be our situation. And we decided to change the course of our lives and become the bosses of our money. So he lost his job, my husband, in 2008, right when the recession hit. And it's almost 10 years, and our situation is 100% different. We are in opposite sides. And I am kind of happy that that happened to us, if that makes any sense, because I wasn't going to learn those lessons about being smart with my money, managing my money, preparing for an emergency, preparing for when life comes and beats you up. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't because of the loss of his job. And it's taught us great lessons. It's helped us to put our lives into perspectives, to decide what's important, what are our priorities. And our priorities are to never be in financial distress, to plan ahead, and to have the money to do the things that we like to do and live the lifestyle that we want to do, regardless of what our society dictates. And those are hard lessons that we've learned and that I'm sharing with you guys. And so today I'm building on that conversation. And you know, not a lot of people like to talk about money. I like to talk about money, although it is one of those taboo topics that no one wants to talk about. But I think that the only way to be good at something is by studying it, learning, and discussing it. And if we're never talking about money because, what are people going to think? And we're more worried about our appearances, we really never get to a better place. So today I want to talk about, this is not the sexiest part of talking money, but it is one of the foundations, the most important part. I told you I was going to share with you the process that we went through and that we've adopted to flip our financial situation from being in distress to being in a very comfortable situation. I'm not rich, but I have learned to make good decisions with my money and to spend it wisely. So I'm going to share with you what that looks like. And the first thing that you need to know is that in order for you to be the boss of your money, to really tell you money, where you want it to go, how you want to spend it, how you want to save it, how you want to grow it, you really need to lay a strong foundation. That comes in the form of knowing where every money, nickel, dime, penny, dollar that you make goes. In other words, you need to budget and you need to learn to live on a budget. Now, how do we even do a budget? Everyone that I talk to, they're scared about the topic of the budget. I didn't have idea what a budget was until one day I just had to do it because we didn't have enough money coming in and we had a lot of expenses and we needed to do something to stop the bleeding, okay? So I started budgeting and I just kind of did it my own way and learned better ways to do it. But what I suggest you to do, if you don't already budget, I'm going to walk through a process and a exercise that I do that's really good. It's time consuming, but it's time well invested. Remember, no one gets to be in good shape by sitting on the couch eating potatoes. No athlete gets to win gold medals by not waking up at 4 in the morning and training for 10 hours a day or whatever they do. No person succeeds by coincidence or mere luck. It takes work. If you want to be the boss of your money, if you want to be a person who is in charge, who is not in debt, who can make decisions because she has money, who can make choices because he's not in debt, then you need to work at it. And just as you go to the gym and just as you, whatever you're really good at, and you spend all that time being and learning that skill or practicing that sport, whatever is it that you do, you need to invest time in learning your money. And the first thing you need to start is by knowing where your money is going. So you need to do what I call an expense report. This is the foundation for our budget. An expense report, if you guys have been to any business trip, you come back and then you have to file an expense report. You got to tell the company where you spend the money, how you spend the money. It's the same thing. They do it at businesses, and that's why there's businesses, because they run on a budget and they know what they're doing, how much money it's coming, how they're growing, where they're going. You need to treat your life and your household like a business. And the income that you bring in needs to be enough to support your lifestyle, aka your household, your life. So think about running your finances like you're running a business. And you want the best for your business, and you don't want your business to flop, because then you're going to go down. Then I need you to do this. If you're driving, listen to it and then go home and listen to the podcast again and do this exercise. You need to pull all your bank statements, credit card statements, mortgage statements, anything where you're spending or making money. You need to have a record of it. And I need you to get together all your receipts for your expenses, for everything, from a stick of gum to your gas to your mortgage payments. You have to have all your expenses for the previous month. Whatever month you're listening to this podcast, go back to the previous month and collect all these statements. If you use credit cards or debit cards for your purchases, this should be no big deal because you have a bank statement that can reflect all the purchases. Now we need everything from day one to the last day of the month, which is not always the same as your statements from your bank. So make sure you get all the transactions from day one to the last day of the previous month. You're also going to need all the income. You need to account for all the income, whether it was from your salary, if you have rental properties, or maybe you have some side hustles. We need to know exactly how much money is coming in and how much money is leaving the bank account. All right, that's going to be our basic. We're going to do an expense report, and you're going to sit down for about 3 hours because they take time. And I need you to pull some paper and a pen, and I need you to write at the top of your page all your sources of income with dates and amounts, exact amounts. Now, something I learned about budgeting, some months have 4 weeks, some months have 5 weeks. If you get paid on a bi-weekly basis, it's important to know how many weeks are in your month, because you're going to have to budget for an extra week of expenses. On the other hand, you get an extra paycheck. So that's really good news. Don't spend it, save it. We're going to need that money to pay down the debts, okay? So, but just be aware of that. When you're making a budget, there will be months when you're going to have 5 weeks of expenses and an extra paycheck. So keep that in mind. All right, write down all your income. Now we're going to go and write down all the outgo, everything, every cent you spend. If you go onto my website at www.yasminthomas.com/budget-boss, you're going to find the post for this episode. And I have a list, the exact list that I use to budget with all my budget categories. It goes from giving, tithing, savings for an emergency fund, kids' college, special purchases like vacation, furniture, cars, your housing expenses from rent to maintenance to housekeeping, utilities, anything from electric, gas, water, internet, cable, cell phone, transportation. Every time you go to the gas station, you're going to write it down and you're going to put the amount you spent. Car maintenance, insurance. Anytime you go to the grocery store, you're going to have to put it down on your category for food, restaurants, all your lifestyle expenses from daycare, doggy daycare, your kids' sports, your gym memberships, your personal care, haircuts, manicures, movie rentals, clothing. And there is a category that I think it's very important that you should have, and it's money dedicated so that you can have fun with it. So you should have one, and your spouse should have an amount every month that you guys can spend on whatever you guys want to spend. And that little money is your own. Everything else, you work it out together. You also need to have a category for all your debts, from your credit cards, student loans, car payments, everything you're paying money towards. You need to lay it out on this expense report. Please spend the time on this, because the numbers that come out of here are going to tell us the story of your financial life. Okay? And let me do a parenthesis here to tell you that if you guys have listened to my previous episodes, you know that I do not use credit cards, and I do not recommend that you get into credit card debt. I don't recommend that you get into this lie that you can use your credit cards for the points, the rewards, or the miles, because it ends up just getting you into trouble. So don't be tempted to do that. If you don't use credit or debit cards and you just use cash, then you're going to get together all your receipts. You're going to need to keep track of all your receipts to be able to do your expense report. It's just as important. No matter how you pay for it, you need to know where the money is going. All right, so sit down, get you a cup of coffee, spend some time doing this exercise, because it's very important that you know exactly where all the money is going. So once you finish categorizing all your expenses, it's time to ask the question: are you on the red or are you on the black? Did you spend more money than you make, or did you come with extra money at the end of the month? If you have extra money, that's good news. If you are spending more money than you make, we really need to take a careful look at the numbers and find out where's the money going. Are you eating out every day for lunch and spending a lot of money? Are you spending too much money on your car? Because when you add the insurance, the gas, the car payment, and the maintenance. I mean, some people are spending more than $1,000 a month on their car expenses, and that is huge and ridiculous. And that's why I don't have a car payment, because that's a lot of money. I mean, what would you like to do with an extra $12,000 a year? That's basically a raise that you could give yourself by not having a car payment. And you don't need to drive a beater and not having a car payment. And perhaps you are in debt. Perhaps you have thousands and thousands of dollars on credit card debt or student loans, but yet you drive a really nice car that's costing you an eye and another eye. It's just a lot of money. So that's why the expense report exercise is so important, because it's going to pinpoint where your money is going and where making sacrifices. Remember, no Olympic medalist got there by not making sacrifices. If you really want to win with your money, be in good financial shape, set yourself and your family for a good future, live the lifestyle that you want to live and not the lifestyle that you are forced to live because you are in debt, then you really need to look at your expense report. All right, so we've done the numbers. You know where the money is going. We are going to use this expense report to build our budget for the following month. Another lesson that I learned about budgeting: you always have to do the budget in advance. You have to plan, like I said, just like a business. You have to plan how much money are you going to need the next month for all your expenses. Some of your expenses are pretty steady, like your mortgage payment, your car payments, maybe those are always the same. Your grocery bills, you know how much money you spend on groceries. But sometimes the electric can be more expensive from month to month. So the budget will allow you to plan in advance how much money you think you're going to need, so that you don't end up short and being unable to pay your bills and ending up getting into debt because you didn't have enough money. Now, when you're planning your next month's budget, remember to look at the calendar and make sure that there are 4 or 5 weeks of the month, because you're going to have to plan for an extra week of expenses like groceries, daycare, gas. The good news, like I said, you're going to get an extra paycheck, so you're going to use that money to either save it and build your emergency fund, or if you already have an emergency fund, you're going to pay down your debts. It's amazing when you go through the numbers. Once I realized that I had gone basically every other day to the grocery store. Between me and my husband, we had gone to the grocery store about 15 or 20 times in a month. I mean, how pathetic is that? Not just spending all that time at the grocery store, but that just tells you that we really needed to get our meal planning in line, because going to the grocery store every other day was so expensive and probably not the best use of our time. Like, my numbers now are telling me that our cell phone, cable, and internet bills are so expensive. We really need to look into finding better deals with different providers, or doing a bundle package or something, because we are spending more money on those categories than we are spending on all the other utilities, from gas, water, and electric, which is a lot of money. So look at the numbers and see what story the numbers are telling you. My guess is that, number one, you're spending way too much money eating out, way too much money having fun with your friends on the weekends, and way too much money going shopping and on your car. You probably drive a car. If you live paycheck to paycheck, most likely you drive a car that you cannot afford. All right? Now remember, all your debts need to be listed on your budget so that you know if there's extra money, what you can pay off. And I'm not going to get too much into the debt today, because that's going to be the topic for the next episode. We are going to talk about living debt-free. Is it really possible? Can you really drive a nice car and not have a car payment? Can you really dream about paying your house off and maybe doing that job transition that you always wanted to do? Can you pay for your kids' college? All of these things are possible if you get a handle of your money and you get rid of your debt. As long as you have debt, I don't care how many people say this, that you should keep your debt because it's at a very low interest rate. That's what they tell us, because these people work in an industry that relies on you getting in debt for them to get paid. However, yes, you may have a debt at a low interest rate, and they tell you to invest your money because you will be getting a higher interest rate. What you don't realize when they're telling you this is that you probably don't even have the money to invest. And the longer that you have this debt, the more it's going to cost you. I have learned a lot about different ways to manage debt and money from different experts and, financial experts that you see on television, you listen to on radio and everywhere. I do that because I want to be able to have enough information to come up with my own decisions. And from everything that I have learned, my takeaway, it's better to have no debt than to have debt at a very low interest rate. And that's a no-brainer, right? It took me so long to figure that out. But if you think about it, they do not encourage you to do that. They say, oh no, it's a very low interest rate. Just carry the balance. But you don't want to do that because you also do not know what's going to happen in the future. And you may have a low balance, but what if you lose your job? You cannot plan for the unknown. It is better to get rid of your debts, not have that worry, not have that load on your shoulders, and have money on your accounts to do whatever you want with it. All right? So now that you have your expense report, you need to plan next month. And try to really stick to the budget, because there is no other way your money can work for you if you don't make it behave. And if you're just spending your money left and right, you're never going to find yourself in a good financial situation. That is the beauty of having a budget. You realize where you're spending it, where you're wasting it. You realize what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths, and you can work on them. Now, staying on a budget, like keeping track of the budget, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Keeping track of the budget, honestly, it's kind of annoying, because who has time to go through your bank accounts every single day to see what you spend money or not on, and to categorize it, because you got to put it in the category where it belongs. So what I do, I don't do it on a daily basis. I can't even remember to do it on a daily basis. I try to do it on a weekly basis. So I go back for the week and I categorize the expenses where I spent money, I put it on my budget. Sometimes, no one's perfect, I don't even do it on a weekly basis. And I end up binge budgeting at the end of the month just for the sake of getting the budget done. And that's okay too. As long as you're doing your budget, as long as you're knowing where the money's going, you're good. What you don't want to do is to think that because you know in your head how much money you make and how much money you spend, that you have a budget. That's not a budget. That's the illusion of having and living on a budget. If you cannot produce it on paper, you do not have a budget. And your finances, as long as you don't know where your money is going, they will never improve. Budgeting, it's really the best habit. It's the foundation that you need for a strong financial future. So find a system that works for you. You can do it on paper. That's a lot of work. I used to do my budgets on Excel for a long time, and then I switched to an online budgeting tool. It has an app for your iPhone. So I find that convenient. But whatever works for you, whatever you're going to be able to stick with, just do that. If you like your notepads and you want to do it on your notepad, just stick to that. Whatever works for you, just make sure you do it. And remember, it's going to take time. The first couple times you do the budget, you're always going to have issues. There's going to be months where you make more. There's going to be months where expenses happen. There was one month that my kids, it was June, they were going to daycare, so daycare bill was super expensive. My son got sick and he threw up. I'm sorry for the story, but he threw up everywhere. So I had to go and buy a vacuum to clean the carpet. And the washing machine broke all in the same week. Oh, and I also had a flat tire and I had to replace the entire tire because the nail was right at the sweet spot where they cannot rescue the tire. And the tire was like less than a year old. So there goes another $200 for the tire. But the good thing is that I had money in my emergency account to offset those expenses. Actually, for the tire, I do a monthly car maintenance savings draft. So I put money every single month for things like doggy daycare, because when we go on vacation, it's very expensive to leave the dogs at the doggy resort. So I save a little bit every month to pay the bill when it comes due. I also put money aside for the car repairs. And what else? There's a couple of other things that I save. Oh, the car insurance, because I pay my car insurance bill twice a year. So I pay in advance for 6 months. And that has reduced my bill. I save probably $500 by doing the advance payments and a couple other discounts they give you for good customer and this and that. And the deal was that I was going to end up saving about $500 a year just having them draft my payment in advance. So, yeah, I'm going to save that money. You betcha. Okay, so remember, guys, results take time. It took you a long time to get into financial trouble. It's going to take you a long time to get out of financial trouble. But I want you to know that it is possible. You will do it. If you want to be disciplined, and if you are tired of being broke and living paycheck to paycheck, and if you're willing to put in the time, and if you're willing to say no to your friends when they say they're going to go out, and if you're willing to consider perhaps selling your car, getting rid of your car payment, and buying a car that you can pay cash for, that's going to drive you just well enough. This is all temporary, guys. The struggle is temporary. I told you on take 18. But if you want to win with your money, it's not going to be easy. And it's certainly not going to be, you're not going to win by being broke. You're going to win by learning about managing your money and making smarter decisions. You should really think about the lifestyle that you want to live and not the lifestyle that I know a lot of you guys are trapped in now because you don't have money to give you options to quit your job, pursue a different career, fund your kids' college education, whatever it is. You need to get a hold of your finances. You need to be the boss of your money to finally really live in peace with less stress. Life always happens, but it's less stressful when life happens and you have money to pay for whatever happens than it is to be broke and then life happens. All right, guys, I hope you're not falling asleep with this budget and expense report talk. Next time, we're going to be talking about getting rid of your debts and having really an idea of how much money you can accumulate by not having debt. This is all I have for you guys today. Please, if you find this podcast useful, if you are learning, if you're feeling inspired and empowered, make sure to let me know. Send me a message on social media, I always say that wrong. Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's so confusing. You can also send me an email. Go to my website, www.yasminthomas.com. Read the post that I wrote about this topic. It's going to give you more detail of how I handle my finances. There is a list of the categories that I budget for. Feel free to add your own, according to your lifestyle. If you don't have kids, you certainly don't need a category for daycare in your budget, of course. But use these resources and let me know if they're being useful. I am creating this content because I want you to be in a better position tomorrow than you are today. It's possible. I did it, and I want that for you. I want you to find the lifestyle that brings happiness and peace and fulfillment to your life. And I want you to take control of it because nobody else is going to do that for you unless you take the step. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you guys if you can please, if you're enjoying this, if you can leave me an honest review on iTunes. You can leave me a rating and an honest review. Those reviews are important, not only because they tell people what you find in this podcast and what it is about and how you like it, but it also helps the show to be noticed by other people. And I would really appreciate if you can share it, if you can leave me a review on iTunes, and if you can tell your friends about it, share it on your Facebook, social media. I would really appreciate that, guys. I hope this podcast was useful. I hope you're learning something. I know we're talking about money, not the sexiest topic on budgeting, but we are heading in a good direction. Okay, guys, till the next time, remember, keep it simple. I'm going to talk to you on the next take.